Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's open our Bibles to Hebrews chapter 11. We're getting ready.
請大家揭開希伯來書第11章。
Okay, let's start with prayer.
首先我哋一齊祈禱。
Father in heaven, thank you for giving us a good day.
親愛天父，多謝你將咁美好嘅一日俾我哋。
Giving us all the things we need, our food, our clothes, our home.
多謝你賜俾我哋有家有我哋所需要嘅一切衫啊、食物啊，神啊，你都供應俾我哋。
Thank you for giving us this place here to meet as well.
多謝神你俾我哋有聚會可以敬拜你嘅地方。
Please help the Sunday school teachers as they're teaching upstairs.
主啊，求你去幫助咧喺樓上教導嘅張學老師。
Please help me as I speak. I can speak clearly.
主啊，亦
And
都
Olivia, she translates too.
亦都求你咧去幫助 Scott 講道嘅時候能夠清晰，亦都幫助我翻譯嘅時候可以將你想我傳達嘅意思去表達出嚟。
Help us to be able to turn our minds to you every day.
主啊，求你幫助我哋每一日都係專注喺你身上。
In Jesus' name.
奉耶穌基督名字祈禱。
We are reading Hebrews chapter 11 with many examples of faith.
喺希伯來書我哋一路咧都係睇緊希伯來書第11章啦。咁裏邊咧有好多信心嘅榜樣。
Last week I had a message about Abraham.
上星期咧我哋就係睇亞伯拉罕啦。
That was more focused for the children. So today we're going to talk about Abraham again.
因為上個星期咧特登我哋安排嗰個內容咧係切合小朋友多啲嘅。咁啊今日咧我哋又再睇多一次咧希伯來亞伯拉罕啦。
So I want to read verse 1 first, Hebrews 11 verse 1, and then read verses 8 through 16.
首先咧，我哋睇希伯來書第11章嘅1節啦，然後咧就睇8至16節。
Verse 1, I hope you have it memorized by now, in whatever version that you have. Verse 1, now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see.
既然我哋讀咗咁多個星期咧，好想咧你已經咧係背咗希伯來書第11章1節啦。信就是所望之事嘅實底，是未見之事的確據。係啦，無論係邊個版本都得嘅，你記住就得㗎啦。
Let's skip to verse 8 and read verses 8 through 16. By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going.
亞伯拉罕因着信，蒙召的時候就遵命出去，往將來要得為業的地方去。出去的時候還不知道往哪裏去。
By faith he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise.
他因着信就在所應許之地作客，好像在異地居住帳棚，與那同蒙一個應許的以撒雅各一樣。
For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God.
因為他等候那座有根基的城，就是神所經營所建造的。
And by faith even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise.
因着信，連撒拉自己雖然過了生育的歲數，還能懷孕，因他以為那應許他的是可信的。
And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the sand on the seashore.
所以從一個彷彿已死的人就生出子孫，如同天上的星那樣眾多，海邊的沙那樣無數。
All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth.
這些人都是存着信心死的，並沒有得着所應許的，卻從遠處望見且歡喜迎接，又承認自己在世上是客旅，是寄居的。
People who say such things show they're looking for a country of their own.
說這樣話的人是表明自己要找一個家鄉。
If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return.
他們若想念所離開的家鄉，還有可以回去的機會。
Instead, they were looking for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared a city for them.
他們卻是冇一個更美的家鄉，就是在天上的。所以神被稱為他們的神，並不以為恥，因為他已經給他們預備了一座城。
Abraham was an exceptional example of one who believed God and obeyed Him. 亞伯拉罕咧，毫無疑問咧係其中一個代表啦，其中一個榜樣咧係佢嘅信心就係佢個好值得我哋去學習嘅地方。Here, the first case of this is referenced when God told him to leave his home and go to a place, but He didn't say where he was going. And Abraham believed and went.
最初咧，上帝咧就叫亞伯拉罕要去離開佢所住嘅地方啦，成家一齊搬走啦嘅時候咧，神咧都未話俾亞伯拉罕聽要去邊嘅喎，但係咧亞伯拉罕就咁樣就喐身啦。
He took his wife, his father, and his nephew, at least.
佢起碼咧就帶咗啲咩人同佢一齊咧？就係佢太太啦、佢爸爸啦，仲有就係 nephew 唔知道。就我最亂㗎呢啲。
His brother's son.
哦，都唔知。係啦，佢。
Anyway, we cannot imagine that this was something that was easy to do.
你唔可以想像咧，其實呢件事咧有幾咁艱難。
I don't know if he had to have some discussions with his wife and his family about this. I'm not sure.
咁聖經咧就冇寫到其實佢有冇同老婆啊仔女商量過喎。
But you can imagine that if he did, or with his friends, or someone, he would have to explain himself in some way.
可能咧，如果佢真係要同老婆仔女啊，或者佢啲朋友去講起呢一樣嘢嘅時候咧，佢都要稍微解釋一下。
And you can imagine how that might have been.
你唔可以想像個情況會係點？
We can imagine. I can imagine. I have an imagination.
咁我哋可以想像得到當時嘅情況係點樣。
So we're moving. So talking to his friend, Abraham's talking to his friend over a cup of coffee.
我以為你講我哋自己。咁樣咧，亞伯拉罕同啲朋友一齊啦，即係可能個場景就係咁樣啦。佢同啲朋友一齊飲緊嘢咁樣啊，可能飲緊杯咖啡咁就話：喂，我哋搬啦咁樣。
And so, really?
咁啲朋友就係啊。
So why are you moving?
點解要搬啊
God told me.
上帝叫我搬咯。可能啲 friend 啲朋友就係都唔知道點樣答啦。
If you're good friends, they won't laugh out loud.
如果咧佢哋係好朋友或者真朋友咧，唔會笑得咁大聲嘅。
Well, okay. So where are you going? Where are you moving to?
可能啲人一開始就上帝叫你去你去邊啊？搬去邊啊
？God didn't say.
咁亞伯拉罕就答啦，可能啦就神冇講喎。跟住你嗰啲朋友一定係咁樣。
Sure, yeah.
一定係啦，上帝一定係叫你搬，又唔話俾你聽搬去邊啊。
They might start thinking you're a little bit crazy.
可能咧開始諗亞伯拉罕有啲唔正常。
And the journey he went on was not an easy one, as far as convenience of transportation, things like that. It took a long time on dangerous roads, a new place.
亞伯拉罕咧要搬啦，要起行啦，一啲都唔容易嘅喎，因為可能即係交通啊未必咁方便啦，咁可能係要去一笪新嘅地方啊，都未去過嘅。
So it would have appeared to have been doing something that was quite foolish to other people.
所以喺其他人眼中咧，佢咁樣做咧，可能係一件愚蠢嘅事。
But he believed God and he did it.
但係因為咧，亞伯拉罕相信上帝啦，於是咧佢就動身啦。
Now God had made him a promise, several promises, but one promise that's mentioned here is of the promised land that God would give to his descendants.
神咧應承咗亞伯拉罕幾樣嘢喎，其中一樣嘢咧應承亞伯拉罕嘅就係咧賜一笪地咧俾佢嘅亞伯拉罕嘅後裔。
And this was a promise that did come true. His descendants did receive the promised land.
亞伯拉罕嘅後裔咧都真係去到一笪地方係神賜俾佢哋嘅，咁我哋叫佢做應許嘅地方。
But not right away, years and years and years later.
但係神唔係即刻俾佢哋嘅喎，係要經過好多年之後先俾。
Not his son, not his grandson.
起碼亞伯拉罕個仔同埋佢個孫都未得到呢個地啦。
They went there, but they didn't get it as their land. They were in this land as strangers, as visitors, and they lived in tents.
雖然咧佢哋已經去到嗰笪地方啦，已經咧但係咧就嗰笪地唔係佢哋嘅，即係未屬於佢哋嘅。於是佢哋就好似一啲寄居嘅，好似一啲客旅咁樣住喺帳篷裏邊。
Now this is what's something that's very interesting that's referred to here that we just read. Abraham had received a promise that his descendants would receive a physical, literal land, but Abraham wasn't really focused on that promise so much.
呢度咧就講到話神咧就要賜笪地俾亞伯拉罕嘅仔啦，同埋後代啊咁樣啦。咁但係咧亞伯拉罕其實唔係好在意嗰笪地嘅啫喎。
He was focused on another promise.
佢在意嘅係另外一個神應承佢嘅嘢。
And what was that? That's mentioned in verse 10.
係乜嘢咧？就係第10節啦。
He was looking forward to not the promised land, the land in Canaan, but to a city with foundations whose architect and builder is God.
呢度講到話佢等候嗰座有根基嘅城咧，就係神所經營所建造嘅。
And let's see, just jump to verse 16. They, that would be Abraham, people like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were looking for a better country, a heavenly one.
第16節咧講到咧亞伯拉罕同埋佢嘅後裔咧，羨慕一個更加美嘅家鄉啊，就係喺天上邊嘅。
Now here's where we can see some similarities between Abraham and us, and some differences between Abraham and us.
喺呢度咧，我哋見到我哋同亞伯拉罕有相似嘅地方，亦都有唔同嘅地方。
I suppose the difference is that God has not spoken to us and asked us to move to a place we don't know. I suppose probably no one here is in that particular situation.
唔同嘅地方咧，就係相信神咧就冇叫我哋好似亞伯拉罕咁，搬啦，但係又唔話俾我哋聽搬去邊喎。
And I don't suppose anyone here has been promised by God that their descendants would receive a specific plot of land somewhere in the new territories.
第二個唔同嘅地方咧，就係相信咧，我哋在座冇一個人係神咧應承咧俾一笪地咧我哋嘅後裔。
But what do we have that's the same? We do have the promise of a promised land like Abraham. We can look forward like Abraham to a city with foundations whose architect and builder is God, a better country, a heavenly one. We have this promise.
但係咧，我哋同亞伯拉罕相似嘅地方係乜嘢？就係我哋同樣咧有一個應許，就係上帝咧會賜一個地方俾我哋，但係呢個地方係喺天上邊嘅。
When Jesus came, the people who were excited about him, they thought that he was going to bring an earthly kingdom to this world. He was going to be that new king.
當耶穌咧喺嚟到呢一個地上生活嘅時候咧，嗰啲猶太人咧就好開心啊，因為咧佢以為咧耶穌咧會去俾一個喺呢一個地上俾一個土地佢哋而耶穌自己咧就成為嗰個土地嘅王。
And when Jesus was arrested, Peter was ready to fight. He took out his sword and started swinging.
當啲人嚟去捉耶穌嘅時候咧，彼得咧就準備要去同人打交喎，仲掹咗一個士兵嘅刀咧，一斬斬人哋嘅耳仔落。咁耶穌點同佢講
He said, "Put away your sword."
耶穌話放低你嘅刀咯。
Jesus was not coming to bring an earthly kingdom, but a spiritual kingdom.
因為耶穌嚟咧，唔係要去喺地上建立一個王國，而係喺天上面建立一個王國。
In John 14 verse 2, he said, "My Father's house has many rooms." John 14:2.
喺約翰福音第14章2節咧，耶穌話佢父原有好多，佢父嘅家裏邊咧有好多住處啦。即係或者換句説話嚟講，就係佢爸爸嘅屋企咧，佢爸爸笪地方咧有好多好多嘅地方啊。
If that were not so, would I have told you that I am? If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you?
如果冇嘅話咧，我一早已經話咗俾你哋聽啦。我離開咧原本咧就係為你哋預備地方。
Jesus, this is the promise we have, that Jesus has gone to the Father to prepare a place for us, a heavenly city.
耶穌基督咧，佢離開咗呢一個地上啦，喺天父嘅側邊，為咗咧係要為我哋去預備一個地方啊，喺天上面一個地方。
In Revelation 21:1, we can see this promise expressed in another way.
喺啟示錄21章咧，我哋見到聖經咧唔同，即係都有描述到呢一笪地方。
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea.
我又看見一個新天新地，因為先前的天地已經過去了，海也不再有了。
You and I have this promise of a heavenly kingdom in our future.
你同我咧都得到神咧俾我哋呢個應許嘅，就係咧我哋將來咧喺天國咧就有，即係神咧應承話要去俾天國即係俾我哋可以喺嗰度去生活。
And our life now, living in our life now, we are like Abraham as strangers in the promised in the land of Canaan. We are like strangers living in this earth.
就好似咧亞伯拉罕喺神賜俾佢嗰笪地方啊，迦南呢一笪地方咧，都係好似客旅咁樣生活啦。我哋喺地上啊，我哋喺而家咁樣地上咧，我哋都應該係好似亞伯拉罕咁，好似客旅咁樣生活。
This is not our promised land.
因為呢一度唔係神賜俾我哋嘅地方。
This is a temporary place.
即係呢一度唔係應許嘅地方嚟㗎，係一個暫住嘅地方嚟㗎。
And our body is like a tent we're living in. Temporary thing.
我哋嘅身體又一樣啦，就好似帳篷咁樣，係一啲暫時嘅嘢嚟嘅。
Now, what's the problem?
咁問題出喺邊度咧
？The problem is that we just forget that, and we live in this world as if it were our final, permanent home.
個問題係出喺我哋就當咗呢一笪地方咧，就係我哋永久嘅地方嚟㗎啦。我哋唔記得咗神俾我哋嗰個應許啊。
It's like the institutionalization of prisoners who've been in prison for decades.
就好似咧有啲住咗係有啲被判監超過10年嗰啲啊，喺監獄嗰度坐咗10年啦。
And they're used to life in prison.
咁因為佢慣晒啦喺監獄嘅生活。
And they may be afraid to leave it.
所以咧，佢哋可能好害怕去離開喎。
They're actually have become comfortable in that place.
甚至咧坐監坐得太舒服啦，對佢哋嚟講。
You can see the difference. If I'm thrown into prison for a week, no problem. I'm counting the days, I'm counting the hours, I'm counting the minutes when I'm getting out, and I will not mistake that place for my permanent home.
如果咧你判我監啦1個星期，我諗我捱得過嘅，咁我咪逐日數咯，終於有一日會過噶嘛。咁然後過咗嗰1個禮拜，我都唔會當監獄係我永遠長住嘅地方啦。
But if I'm in there for years and years and years, I'll get used to it, I'll settle down, and that will become my home.
但係如果我要住耐啲啦，即係喺監獄要坐耐啲嘅時候，年復年咁樣，我可能慣晒裏邊嘅生活咯。
And I may even be afraid to leave and be comfortable there to a degree.
可能我會覺得喺監獄都幾好啊，都幾舒服啊，唔好出翻去啦。
C.S. Lewis mentions another example. He says, we become like the little boy who says, I don't want to go to a holiday on the beach because he's too happy playing in his muddy puddle in front of his house.
如果咧有咁嘅想法嘅時候咧，即係好似我哋頭先咁樣想法嘅時候咧，咁有一位基督教嘅作者咧，魯益斯咧，佢都曾經咧舉過一個例啦。如果我哋真係咁留戀地上嘅生活啊，就好似點樣啦？就好似一個小朋友咧，佢話：我唔去沙灘度玩啊，我喺呢個泥凼度玩得好開心。
We cannot imagine that there would be anything better.
因為對佢哋嚟講，呢個泥凼咧已經係太好啦，最好啦，佢想像唔到有更加好嘅地方。
My children love just running out. If it's raining and going outside and playing in a puddle, they'll be happy for hours.
Scott 嘅小朋友咧，一落雨嘅時候，佢哋就會好想走出去玩嗰啲水凼啊、泥地啊，已經好開心㗎啦。
And well, we get like that too.
我哋可能都會去留戀地上嘅生活。
It's hard to imagine a place we haven't seen.
因為我哋想像唔到嗰一笪我哋未見過嘅地方究竟係點㗎。
If someone tells us about it and how wonderful it is, it's even hard for them to explain to us in a way that we can understand.
如果要有人咧解釋俾我哋聽嗰笪地方有幾好咧，可能解釋完我哋都仲係一頭霧水嘅。
The heaven is described in Revelation.
喺啟示錄咧有描述到天堂係點嘅。
But I don't know what you think when you read that. You may or may not be attracted by that. I don't know.
唔知道你睇嘅時候咧，會唔會覺得天堂好吸引呢？
Streets of gold.
有黃金地。
I don't know. That represents an idea of value and wealth and something precious. 點解要話嗰啲天國嘅新天新地嘅地下係黃金嚟嘅咧？其實可能只係一個象徵嚟嘅咋，就係話俾我哋聽嗰笪地方係嗰個地係好好㗎、好靚㗎、好寶貴㗎。 And it's now here's something that's to me I think we can all understand. It's very attractive. Heaven is a place where there will be no more tears. 喺天國咧咁多個描述咧，有一啲咧我哋都會想像得到而覺得好好嘅，就係譬如話唔再有哭泣，唔再有流淚。Every day when you get up, when you get out of bed, 咁每一日啊，當你起身啦 ，What do you think about? 你諗緊啲咩咧 ？Do you think today I'm on my way to heaven? 你會唔會話今日我又距離天國近一步啦？I rarely think that. 我哋唔會咁樣諗啦，少啦，好少，好罕有咁樣諗啦。Usually I wake up and think, how am I going to survive today? 可能咧，我哋就係起身嘅時候，我哋就係諗，今日要點樣捱過咧 ？Let's read a parable of Jesus from Luke 12. 耶穌咧喺路加福音第12章咧有一個比喻。Luke 12, the parable of the rich fool. Luke 12:13. 路加福音12章13節。Parable of the rich fool. 咁咧就有一個人咧好有錢，但係咧就冇智慧嘅。So Luke 12:13. Someone in the crowd said to him, that's Jesus, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. 第13節啦，喺眾人當中咧有一個人對耶穌話：夫子，請你吩咐我嘅兄長同我分家業。Jesus replied, Man, I don't know what tone of voice here. Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? 耶穌話：你呢個人啊，邊個立我作你哋斷事嘅官，讓你哋咧分家業㗎 ？Then he said to them, Watch out, be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. 於是咧，耶穌咧就對眾人話啦：你哋要謹慎自守，免去一切嘅貪心，因為人嘅生命不在乎家道豐富。Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. 生命咧不在乎家道豐富啊。But that's how we wake up many mornings is wake up and think, how can I today make money so that I can gain more possessions, right? 通常我哋一早起身就梗係諗下今日點樣賺錢，點樣令到自己家道豐富啦。In one way or another, life is often about work, money, buy things.
生命咧好似咧好簡單嘅，就係幾樣嘢嘅啫，就係翻工同埋翻工啦，賺錢同埋賺錢啊，咁令到我哋有錢去買嘢同埋買
But
嘢。
Jesus says this is not the meaning of life.
但係耶穌話生命唔係在乎呢啲嘢喎。
Verse 16, and he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops.
於是咧，耶穌咧就用比喻對呢一啲人講啦。有一個財主田產豐盛，心裏邊咧成日諗啦，我嘅出產冇地方收藏喎，咁點算呢？
Verse 18, then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And then I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry.
第18節啦，講到呢一個人咧就話：，不如咁啦，我將我貨倉拆咗佢，我谷倉拆咗佢，起個大啲嘅，咁我就可以將我一切嘅糧食同埋財物咧，全部都會即係儲喺嗰度。然後咧，我對我自己話：靈魂啊，你有好多財物積存啊，可以作多年嘅費用。咁啊，安安日日咁樣吃喝玩樂啦。
But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you prepared for yourself?
第20節咧，上帝咧卻對呢一個有錢人講啦：無知嘅人啊，你今晚我就要你嘅靈魂啊！你所預備嘅嘢係可以留翻俾邊個咧？
This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God.
凡為自己積財，卻在神面前不富足的，也是這樣。
So in the morning when we wake up, instead of thinking that this is our permanent home and we need to make it more comfortable for ourselves, we need to get up every morning and say, how today can I be rich toward God?
咁我哋既然睇咗呢一個比喻之後咧，都提醒大家，其實每一日起身啊，除咗即係好似以往咁樣諗點樣令到自己家道豐富之外咧，其實都可以去諗下，我哋點樣喺神面前係豐富啊
Matthew 6, verse 19 and 20 and 21.
馬太福音6章第21節。
Matthew 6, verses 19 through 21.
馬太福音6章19至21節。
This is something Jesus said.
耶穌咧咁樣講。
In Matthew 6, verse 19. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
耶穌話：不要為自己積攢財寶在地上，地上有蟲子咬，能受壞，也有賊或窟窿來偷。只要積攢財寶在天上，天上沒有蟲子咬，不能受壞，也沒有賊或窟窿來偷，因為你的財寶在哪裏，你的心也在哪裏。
Let's wake up every morning and say to ourselves, this world is not my home.
每朝早啦，我哋起身咧，咁我鼓勵你哋諗啦，呢一笪地方，呢個世界唔係我嘅家嚟㗎。
How can I store up for myself treasures in heaven today?
反而咧要諗下，我點樣咧去令到我哋喺天國嘅財寶咧更加多啦。
If we can have this kind of perspective every day, a lot of things that we think are important won't seem so important.
如果我哋真係有呢個想法嘅話咧，其實平日困擾我哋嘅事情咧都變得唔重要啦。
Is a great job really so important?
我哋係咪真係需要有一個好有前途嘅工作咧
What I'm talking about are our priorities.
呢度咧講我哋強調嘅係我哋嘅優次嗰個順序啊。
Are our priorities right? Should the top thing on that list be a good job, great job?
講緊嘅就係我哋生命當中最重要嘅嘢啊！第一件事啊，係咪就係要有一份好工
Is it so important that I make a lot of money?
我哋要賺好多嘅錢，呢一樣嘢係咪真係咁重要咧
That I have a life of luxury?
我嘅生活係咪一個奢華嘅生活呢？
That I see the world. Travel and see the world. Is it so important?
定係對你嚟講要去睇多啲呢個世界啊，係好重要嘅呢？
Is it so important that I look out for myself?
定係呢？我要尋找自我呢一樣嘢好重要嘅呢？
Is it so important that I make sure my rights aren't violated?
又或者你係好強調嘅就係我要保障我應有嘅權益啊？
Is it so important to live to an old age, live in a clean house?
對你嚟講係咪老來得到即係老咗係有安居之所啊，或者係好好嘅退休生活啊，對你嚟講好重要呢？
Is it so important to watch all the latest movies, know the trivia of celebrities' lifestyles, to dress fashionably, drive a new car, etc., etc.? Are those things important?
定係對你嚟講最重要嘅就係唔得我要走在潮流嘅尖端啊，同埋咧我要知道晒咧所有名人啊嘅新聞啊，係咪呢啲事對你嚟講最重要呢？
From God's perspective, what's really important?
但係上帝嘅角度睇啊，乜嘢係最重要㗎？
What is it? What is it? Jesus said,
耶穌話
love God and love your neighbor.
耶穌話要盡心盡性盡意愛你嘅主你嘅神啊，同埋咧要愛人如己，呢個先係最重要㗎。
This is a way to store up treasure in heaven.
呢個咧就係喺天國咧積攢財寶嘅方法啦。
What if you did that? What if you and I did that? We loved God and loved our neighbor and loved our enemy 50% of the time.
如果我哋愛主、愛人同埋愛我哋嘅仇敵啦，
That would be a great improvement, wouldn't it?
可能我哋用一半嘅時間去做呢啲嘢啦，咁其實可能已經係相比而家咧已經進步咗好多
I
啦。
would be so happy if I could do that.
如果
That would be
我自己
wonderful.
如果我自己真係做得到嘅話，我真係會好開心咯，咁
Of
就真係
course,
好啦。
of course, we wow, to do that more and more.
咁我哋要做嘅嘢就係不斷咁樣進步啦，喺呢啲範疇嗰度。
But what if we did that more, and what if we did that all the time?
如果我哋真係做得到啦，時常都係咁樣做啦，
What if we prayed for those who persecuted us?
去為逼迫我哋嘅人祈禱，
What if we turned the other cheek?
去以德報怨咁咯。
How would our lives be different?
我哋嘅生命會係幾咁唔同
And
啊！
how would we glorify God?
而我哋咧又會幾咁去榮耀我哋嘅上
And
帝咧？
how would we attract others to Him?
更加重要嘅就係我哋會更加去吸引咧其他人咧去認識我哋嘅神啦。
Let's prepare for our communion.
讓我哋咧預備領受聖餐。